effectively, if you have preferences that depend upon your state as defined by your endowment point, you're going to get this unmistakable irrationality of indifference curves crossing, which leads to preference reversals in the form of the endowment effect. Stigler and Becker, before people even really started looking at the endowment effect, but we're worried about lots of other kind of state-dependent preference reversals, so this is Gary Becker, who's one of the heavy hitters at the University of Chicago, which, as I think I've said, is the universal capital of rational utility theory. They came along and solved this problem in actually an extremely elegant manner, and this is a really fabulous paper if you can get through it. Basically, what they said is, look, for any situation where you think preferences depend on the state, let's just define a variable S that will capture what state an individual is in. So one of their main working examples is the acquisition of taste for classical music, and S is how much classical music you've listened to in the past. Okay, so it's a stock variable, like in a capital accumulation model, and basically the more classical music you've listened to, the more you like classical music, unless you're being played really bad classical music as a form of torture, which happens. It's not usually classical music. So then. It's true. Then you define the instantaneous utility function as a function of both consumption and the state, right? So it's your preference for consumption, whatever that might be, conditional on your state. So that's where you have consumption, which is a choice variable, and then S, the state, after the semicolon, which says that's not a choice variable. That's just whether you're hungry or not, whether it's raining or sunny, whether you're endowed with a mug or not. That's something that changes from one state to another, and you're going to have preferences conditional on that, right? So preferences over mugs and money holding the reference point constant. And then what you see is, holding the reference point constant, I'm going to be able to observe a set of indifference curves that doesn't cross, and I would have two families of indifference curves, each one of which is rational within itself, right? Right, so that's supposed to be a semicolon right there. I write down instantaneous utility function here, such that basically R1, R2 is equal to S. So the state variable is this little two unit long vector R1, R2. Okay. So because the reference point itself isn't stable, it looks like references aren't stable. But if we just define the reference point as a state, we solve the problem. So that's Stigler and Becker. And we can get a long way with that, right? So it seems reasonable to assume, in lots of cases, that conditional on, for example, your state of hunger, that your preferences for food versus money are stable. So I just want to make sure I don't go past that point. Suppose that I wanted to map out indifference curves. I have food here, I have money here. Let's let S be something called H, your state of hunger, and it's a dummy variable that's 1 if you're hungry and 0 if you're not. Okay? Then we might think when you're hungry, right, you have a very strong preference for food versus money, high willingness to pay for food, and this might be a family of indifference curves for your utility for food and money, conditional on your hunger state being 1. Okay, so it would look like that. And then we might have another set here where you're hungry and so your willingness to exchange money for food is less, which means your indifference curves are shallower. Okay? That's and then the fact that these are different, the fact that you have preference reversals from one state to another is no longer a problem for theory. We've sort of rationalized what appears superficially to be irrational preferences. So you could do age, right? So age as a state that changes your risk preferences. So when I was young, I had a very high risk tolerance. Now it's medium, and I'm holding out hope that it will get that I will become even more risk averse as I get older. Hopefully before I have kids. How do we evaluate that? We have an expected utility function with which we evaluate different gambles, G, and we might think that is conditional on some state variable S, which would be your age. Okay, so holding your age constant, I'm going to make choices about insurance or gambling or throwing myself off a cliff in a manner that is consistent and rational and doesn't involve preference reversals. How long you've been going to the gym, etc. So all kinds of ideas. So these guys they rescued rationality of preferences in a way that I think makes a lot of sense. I think it was an important contribution, and I don't think there's any problem with that on its face. Okay, I talked at probably excessive length about my own opinion about whether or not very sudden changes in your reference point or changes in your reference point that are caused by things like a bogus mailing that you receive from the mayor, whether or not that constitutes a legitimate case of state-dependent preferences, or whether we should say no, that in and of itself, the fact that those changes in state change your preferences, that alone is evidence of irrationality. But for a lot of these things, right, risk preferences changing with age, food preferences changing with your state of hunger, absolutely no problem with the idea that the fact that people will pay more for food when they're hungry than when they're not is not evidence of a preference reversal. So now so we're going to go to the next step, which is going to be rationality of expectations in a second, and I think this will help us get there. So suppose that this is you initially with 3 mugs and $100, and that's your reference point, and someone comes along and offers to sell you a mug for $1.50 today, and then buy the exact same mug back from you in a week for $4. Now, if we recall, the slope of this leg was 8. This is exactly from the problem set, and the slope of this leg was 2, or -8, -2, right? So that's the selling price, and that's the buying price, and here are the possible reactions. Of course I'll do that. You think I'm an idiot? Of course I won't do that. You think I'm an idiot? And C, it depends on how I'm feeling about my mug by the end of the week. Yeah, no. Was it 6 and 1.5? Okay, well, I don't think that changes the problem, but yes, you're probably right about that. And we're going to make the assumption that when the person is indifferent, they choose to buy. Okay? So take another 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. One more. Somebody else out there? No. Yeah, there you are. Okay. So what did you say? Where'd it go? Oh, I started again. Whoops, sorry. This is fabulous. Like in that 2 seconds, 8 people click their buttons. What does your utility function look like? I just don't understand. So who said, of course, do you think I'm an idiot? Yeah. This is an obvious case of intertemporal arbitrage, right? Right? You're going to make 250 on this thing. Just tuck them out away and don't get attached to it. Okay. And so I think you could have legitimately answered C in that case. it does depend, and you're saying, well, what should be the case is that you should treat this as not a change in your reference point, and you should not even take it out of its box, and you should treat it as an investment. And then we know that won't actually be true for a lot of people, and so then we sort of have to take people where they are. And so you might think that someone else would say, no, of course I'm not going to do that, because I know that a week from now, right now this is at my buying price, so I'm happy to buy it. A week from now, that's going to have been incorporated into my reference point, and my selling price is going to go up to $6, and I'm not going to want to sell for $4. So of course I don't want to buy your mug, right? It's because I'm indifferent right now, so I can take it or leave it, and I'm not going to want to treat it as an investment because I'm going to be attached to it, and so I'll hold on to it, and I will have wasted my money. To my way of thinking, what this really depends upon is whether or not you predict that that's going to happen. And I think somebody over here commented on that a second ago with respect to the scooter. Okay, so that's my take on this. Is that it really depends whether or not, right? So in the scooter case, it's whether or not the gain utility that you get relative to the reference point of having a junky old scooter persists. And in this case, it's whether the loss utility that you experience from giving up a mug kicks in. Whether you predict how that will kick in. Okay. Yes. Because you wound up with a mug that you now value at $6 that you got for $150? Think that through and let's talk afterwards. I'm not able to think that through quick enough. Let's talk about it afterwards. Okay, so now let's talk about people's expectations about their future, or predictions of their future state-dependent preferences. Because for my money, that's where things start to get really interesting. First, let's have a way of actually notating this. Okay, it's annoying because previously your prediction of your utility function was u hat, and now it's going to be u wiggle, and both of those are because of choices that Matt Raven made in two different papers about two different topics, so I'm not to blame. But we're going to go with u wiggle so that you're not confused when you actually read the paper. Okay, so u wiggle is going to be an individual's prediction of their utility in some future period tau as a function of their actual period tau consumption, so what they will consume or what they are considering consuming in that future time period, conditional on the actual state that they could reasonably predict that they will be in. I will be hungry, I will not be hungry. But predicted when they are in a different current state in period t, ft. So we have three different things here that go into this thing. So here's what u wiggle is going to look like. Okay, we're going to write down your prediction of your preference for consumption, right? Your utility for consumption condition in the future. This is period tau. So this is the utility you're going to get from your actual future consumption c tau. Okay, as a function of the state you're actually going to be in the future, period tau, but conditional on the state you're currently in now as well. Okay, that thing. Okay, so given the state I'm in now, whoops, st. What do I predict my utility will be when I'm in a different state, s tau? So if I'm not hungry now, that would be st equals 0. What is my prediction of how I'm going to feel about consuming food versus money when my utility is actually conditional on h being 1? I'm hungry. Okay. So this is how this is sort of the standard way of writing all of that. And the question we're going to ask is whether or not that is equal to your actual utility for your future consumption conditional on your future state. Do you get it right? Okay. That's the question that we're going to ask. Okay. So prediction when I'm hungry of my non-hungry preferences for food and money would look like this. It would be u wiggle of f tau, the consumption, the food I'm thinking about consuming in the future, and the effect that will have on my future wealth level, because I'll have to pay for it, conditional on my state of hunger in the future, but predicted based on a state of hunger now, which might be different from my state of hunger in the future. Okay? And you could write down the same thing, your prediction of when I don't have a habit of going to the gym, for my preferences once I do have a habit. So right now, personally, I'm a very long way from habituated to going to the gym, and if you said to me, Dan, I'll give you $10 every time you go to the gym next week, I would say, thanks, keep your money. But if I just went to the gym every day for a month, my guess is that I would say, well, I'll cheerfully take your $10 every time I go to the gym because I love going to the gym and it's not going to cost me much at all to make the effort to go to the gym. If I mispredict that, I'm going to make potentially big and catastrophic decisions about my long-term health. And then there's the question of whether or not people predict the thing that Andrew was pointing out, which is the prediction before you buy a shiny object like a brand new scooter of how you'll feel about it once you've owned it for a while. And we could, just as an exercise, you can figure out how to notate each of those predicted utility functions. So the problem that we have in economics is that the Stigler-Becker model assumes rational expectations, right? So that was this. Okay. So it assumes that I'm hungry now, but I know I won't want all this junk food once I've eaten. So that's assuming that u wiggle of f tau, dollars tau, conditional on h tau being not hungry in the future. Sorry, let's actually just say, h tau equals 1. No, I don't want to do that, just h tau. Conditional on my hunger state now is actually equal to the utility function I will actually have for food and money when I'm in the future in my actual future state of hunger. Okay. And you could write down, so I'll buy the correct amount of food to maximize my utility later. I won't say, well, because I'm totally full now, I'm going to go out and say, nah, I don't really need much food. I'm only going to put a few things in my shopping cart and wind up really disappointed later when my preferences change. I hate going to the gym now, but if I have rational expectations, I know that if I just keep going, I'll wind up hating it less. Again, you could write down a version of that rational expectation statement. I'm excited by this new fill in the blank, say, scooter, a romantic partner, etc. But I know that my reference point will adapt. So I won't waste money on shiny objects whose novelty wears off. And the issue here, and I think that it is actually a potentially very big-ticket issue in terms of welfare consequences, is that if instead people fail to predict state-dependent preferences, a few things happen. First of all, the model will be wrong, and it will make the wrong positive predictions in ways that we can talk about. Second, people will exhibit preference reversals, right? So people will say, for example, before they've gotten people's preference for, say, for example, buying a gym membership as a way to make going to the gym cheaper will be different before they formed a habit versus after. And people may fail to optimize their true preferences in potentially catastrophic ways. So, for example, if a gym membership is something that would help you get to the gym in the short term, therefore help you to form a gym attendance habit, if you know that once you form a gym attendance habit, you're going to really enjoy going to the gym, get a lot out of it, and reap huge health rewards at low cost, you should be more willing to buy the membership and more willing to get out the door initially and overcome the time and effort cost of getting out of bed and going to the gym in order to reap the rewards of the habit formation that you foresee is coming down the road. If you don't predict that, you could potentially spend the whole of your life saying, no, I'm not going to buy a gym membership, and I'm not going to do anything to increase the likelihood of going to the gym. Why? Because I don't like going to the gym. Yeah, all right, well, you blew it because you didn't predict your future preferences. Okay. Now let's look at some evidence of misprediction of state-dependent preferences. These are what we call rational expectation anomalies. Okay, I've showed you a standard model. I've showed you some of the assumptions that are baked into the model, and now let's look and see whether those assumptions are correct. Basically, the assumption is that people will correctly predict future preferences. Let's see if we can catch people failing to do that. Okay, hunger. Not necessary. This is supposed to say may not be. So misprediction of hunger, preferences subject to conditional on hunger may not be economically important, but it's a really nice place to go, just like weather may not be that important, but it's a really nice place to go and actually observe whether or not people have rational expectations. Okay, so we can get nice, clear evidence. And also it's interesting because of this fact, which is that we experience hunger daily. So if I'm still subject to mispredicting my preferences when I'm not hungry, from a state of being hungry, after 45 years of being hungry and then not hungry and then hungry and then not hungry, many times a day, something's going wrong if I still mispredict my preferences. And I can save you the time and just cut to the punchline. We all do mispredict our preferences conditional on hunger, so that's pretty strongly suggests that this irrationality is pretty deeply buried in our brain somewhere. Okay, so we start out by looking at shopping studies. These are experimental studies. They're not quite good enough, as I'll show you. So you randomly give a candy bar to half the people entering the supermarket, and then you monitor how much food everyone buys. You have to get permission from the grocery store to do this, but people have done this, and what you see is that half the people you randomly gave candy bars buy less food. Okay, why? Because right, you're buying food for the week. So what you should care about is your preferences over the course of the week, right? So your sort of average utility depending upon being hungry or not hungry at various times over the course of the week. This suggests that if I give you a candy bar so that you're not hungry, you suddenly predict that you will want less food over the course of the week, and if I leave you hungry, you predict that you will want more food over the course of the week. Right? So that could be that you're mispredicting. But another possibility, there's a confound here, which is satiation. Hey, you just gave me a candy bar, so I don't actually need as much food. I was coming to the grocery store to buy, a sack of rice, a sack of beans, and a candy bar, and you gave me the candy bar, so I walked out with just the rice and beans, and you picked that up as less food. So let's conduct, I say solutions to conduct a field experiment. This was a field experiment. Let's do a better one. This is actually quite famous in the field of behavioral economics. And here's how you do it. Actually, how you do it is you do it on Thursday. Because otherwise we're going to rush, and I don't want to do that. So I'll see you on Thursday.